One of the 7-count charges that was filed against Nnamdi Kanu, and they are being holding him on right now on charges of terrorism, is the incident that happened in Obigbo during the NSAS protests of 2020. You remember that Nnamdi Kanu was accused of inciting the mob to attack police stations and unalive policemen, families, and their barracks, and also cut away weapons. All these are also parts of the charges that were filed against Nnamdi Kanu, in addition to also the protests in Lagos. For those who do not know, Obigbo is a town in Rivers State, Nigeria, that was part of the old Eastern states before the Civil War. And that Obigbo was a hotbed of the incidents that happened in the NSAS, as many youths there also were actively involved in the protests, as well as other youths in the whole River State. So it had nothing to do with any group at all, but a collective decision by Nigerians in River State and all parts of Nigeria to fight for the end of the dreaded police called SAS, Special Anti-Robbery Squad. And somehow, as we are aware, there was an infiltration of that protest in all around Nigeria, because the governments of Nigeria and all the state governments also decided to put an end to that protest by any means possible. And you could see the events that happened in Lagos as the touts were the ones who took over the protests, destroying properties, chasing away protesters, and also causing harm on government infrastructure, and later labeling it that it was actually the people who did it. And in this effect, they claimed that Nnamdi Kanu directed the IPOB members to do these destructions. In Obigbo, the River State governor then, using the guise that police formations were attacked, that police lives were lost, and also guns and ammunition were carted away from police stations, he used that guise, to crack down heavily on the protesters as a way of ending the protest, and in so doing, targeted the IPOB group, and in fact, he accused them of being the chief sponsors of the protests in River State. And with that, he actually, in partnership with the army and other security agencies in River State, cracked down heavily on Obigbo local government area of River State, fishing out IPOB members or anybody who appeared to look like an Igbo man, or anybody who somebody pointed and said, this person is an IPOB, or however they felt was the right way of identifying IPOB members. The government cracked down heavily on Obigbo local government and did a lot of damage. And of course, you are aware of what it turned out into. People choose to call it the Obigbo massacre of 2020. And that was a period that many people will never forget. Many Igbos will never forget, because of course hundreds of lives were lost. Of course, people of Igbo descent, hundreds of lives were missing. Many of them were thrown in prison around the country, and hundreds of lives were also injured in that operation. And Nnamdi Kanu, who was not in Nigeria as at then, spoke in defense of this massacre and called for Nigerians and of people generally in River State to at least protect themselves from further attack. It was this call for self-defense that the government thought they could use as an evidence against him in the court of law. And of course, until today, there has been no proof of Nnamdi Kanu directing anybody in River State, directing anybody of Igbo descent, directing any member of IPOB to attack, kill, or destroy any police or security formation till this very day. And of course, till now, there is no single policeman that has come out to say that his life, that his colleague, that has come out to give evidence or give testimony against Nnamdi Kanu on this event in Obigbo. there has been no family member of a deceased police who has come out to speak that her father or her brother or sister lost his life as a police officer or as a security officer in Obigbo or in Rivers State. Till this day, there has still been no evidence shown that anybody, any security officer who suffered any form of violence or attack has come out to show that, look, I am the one, I am part of those officers that had issues during this and this. It was IPOB members who did this to us. There has been nobody who has come out to say that IPOB members did this to them. That leaves so much to be desired, because what then was the premise of the then governor rolling out the tanks on innocent citizens when actually there was no evidence, even to today, showing the level of destruction that he claimed? Instead, it seems as if that was just a premise for a crackdown on that protest, because as at then, the government did not want it anymore. And of course, who best do you want to use as a reason to crack down on the protest, if not IPOB and the Biafra cause, who of course the Nigerian government does not want to hear anything about, and of course looks like a prodigal son in the Nigerian state itself. And in cracking down on this, many lives were lost and people were displaced. And I want to ask, for what? And the painful part is that there has been no police officer who even had to come to Nnamdi Kanu's court case to give testimony when the case was called up as an act of terrorism. Not one police officer, not one security officer came to buttress that point or give a good claim and a good testimony, at least to support that protest was actually sponsored or taken over or hijacked by Nnamdi Kanu. Instead, the real people who committed the genocide are those ones who killed 100 people, innocent people, defenseless citizens, who arrested thousands of people and sent them to jails around the country, and who also injured lots of people in Rivers State. These are the real criminals and people who claimed lots of lives in Rivers State. And of course, as you are aware, they are walking free in the country, while Nnamdi Kanu, who wasn't even in the country as at then, and who only called for self-defense and has always done that right from day one, because self-defense is an enshrined right anywhere in the world, in any country in the world, even in the Nigerian constitution and even in UN Charter. He only called for self-defense because he saw that this was an innocent massacre just used as a guise to quench that protest done for the end of SARS. Nnamdi Kanu is the one facing trial, is the one suffering, while people who killed Nigerian lives are walking free. This goes to show you the value of human lives in Nigeria and how the government does not actually care about you, about anybody, except for the resources in the country and how they are going to make the next billions of dollars from the people itself. And as you can see, his testimony in all areas Fulani herdsmen are attacking in the country. You can see the way they don't care about the community. And when it happens, it just happens and it goes away like that. Nobody talks, nobody cares. If it's 1,000 lives that lost, nobody cares. No arrests also are being made. That is the country you find yourself. I want you to listen very carefully to this. According to Professor Obasi, he said, what happened in Obigbo, if properly documented, qualifies as a genocidal act under international law. The ethnic targeting is clear. Now, the UN Charter Article 1(2) says, all peoples have the right to self-determination to freely determine their political status. According to UNGA Resolution 1514 of 1960, it says, the subjugation of people constitutes a denial of fundamental human rights. According to UNGA Resolution 2625 1970, it says, a people oppressed or denied access to government may lawfully pursue self-determination. They called him a terrorist for crying over children butchered in their sleep, for raising his voice when his people were buried in mass grave. But history will ask, who really committed terror in Obigbo. Obigbo was not a riot. It was a message that Biafrans are not safe in Nigeria. Nnamdi Kanu is not on trial for crime, but for daring to say the truth. It's time the world sees Obigbo for what it was. It's time we ask not whether Kanu is a terrorist, but whether the state became one in Obigbo. And it's time to push the case for a UN-supervised referendum for Biafra. You heard it clearly. It's time to ask who actually is the terrorist in this country. Is it Nnamdi Kanu or the Nigerian state? Because all lines point to the fact that a country that picks up arms against its people, when the people pick up arms against the country, is called terrorism. But when the government picks up arms against its own people, what then is it called? Because the country does not have a right to massacre its own people. Every country, like every family, has a fundamental human right to protect its citizens. And the country itself is an extension of the units in the country, which is the family. The day a country picks up arms against its people, then you know that that is genocide, that is terrorism, and that is a massacre. And it should be called by its true name. Then who is going to fight for these people? Who is going to protect the citizens of the country? Who is going to protect Ndigbo in Nigerian extraction? It is very important that we know the story because, as you are aware, Nnamdi Kanu's court case is coming up on the 10th of October, and definitely speaking, we are still calling upon the judge, upon those stakeholders who are involved, people who manipulate all these things behind scenes, that they should immediately do the right thing and release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu because he committed no offense against the Nigerian state. As it stands today, like I said, there is no one single evidence pointing him to any terrorism act in Obigbo, in Lagos State, Abuja, and anywhere these protests took place. And in fact, of all the 7 count charges, there has been no evidence by the witness itself in the court with all the time provided for the witness testimony. And in fact, those officers who they said suffered as a result of Nnamdi Kanu's activities, there has been no one who has come out to state a claim and boldly say that he was a victim of this. Either he was injured or he was beaten, and proving that it was actually Nnamdi Kanu and the IPOB group or any other Igbo group that did it to him. There's been no one. So why are they still holding him? And why is he still under trial for the past years? This injustice must stop. And that is why we are also calling for a referendum to allow Biafra, to allow Ndigbo decide their own course. And I think that is a just cause, because when the people are in a place they do not belong and they are united in a voice, definitely they should have their own place called home. This massacre in Obigbo, as you are aware, is an act of terrorism, and therefore it also adds to the criteria of the UN, criteria for referendum. It passes all the criteria for that, because the criteria states that if the people are being massacred, are being killed, are being targeted ethnically, that they have a right to cry out and they have a right for self-determination via a referendum. So Obigbo massacre, just like the Python dance, also adds to this cry for a self-determination and referendum. And we are calling on the relevant UN bodies to fast-track this process. As you are aware, Igbo land in Nigeria is like a place that guns are being pointed at from different angles, waiting for anybody that comes out with his head and definitely will be targeted by a sniper. Nobody feels safe again. I don't know how other tribes in Nigeria survive and how they are enjoying this contraption, even living in misery and poverty and insecurity. I don't know how they even survive, because Nigeria as itself was not designed to survive. It was designed to feed the British, and that is what it is. And the few political elites who are benefiting from it, not me and not you. Thank you very much for watching. I have been your host, Chi Ne Do. So I'll see you next video. Peace.